Hello lovelies, I am not sure I have ever been so excited to share a video with you before. Today we're covering 7 macro trends in aesthetics that have died in 2024 and what's coming in 2025. And let me tell you, buckle up because it's gonna be a wild ride. It's almost as if this roaring 20s moment that we've all been waiting for over the last couple of years is finally here with the perfect storm of surviving a pandemic, having recession, inflation, and this whole period of political unrest and different things going on around the world that have bubbled up to create this fashion moment. And in doing all my research for this video, it was very fascinating to see so many parallels of what has happened in the past and the different movements that have occurred in parallel to what we have going on now and the things that we're seeing pop back up. I'm Ziba, I'm a stylist, and I've been covering shows in Paris, New York for the last 7 years. I'm also just a mom that just needs to get dressed in the morning, and I'm here to help you cull through wearable trends as well as figure out how to wear 80% of your closet. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. The first trend that is dying in 2024 is quiet luxury. It's no longer about having like that kind of approved color code that we've seen so much of, like neutrals and certain, nondescript, non-logo bags and accessories that have that quiet luxury stamp of approval. Not about having like that one item that was deemed to be quiet luxury, whether it's the Ro Margot bag, the Totem coat, or the Kate loafers. It is, however, very much about old money and what I will call quiet signaling. Not just that one-off item with the approved color palette. It's about signaling wealth, and it's very fascinating to me because it means that there's a big momentum towards wearing items that signal that you're from generational wealth. For example, we have riding boots, which signal the equestrian lifestyle, which is very much a wealthy person's sport. We have the riding pants with the riding boot silhouette, the barn jackets, which signal that you kind of get the whole picture of Balmoral with Queen Elizabeth and Kate Middleton. And you see the glimpse of them in their beautiful barn jackets, and that you potentially have an estate somewhere here in the country, or maybe even in Britain. Maybe you have an aristocrat in your family, and the barn jacket is an item that we haven't seen mentioned in years, if not decades. And suddenly this year it's up more than 200% in popularity. You see them everywhere, from J. Crew Factory to Barber to Burberry to the Totem jacket that is one of the hottest items this year, that has a beautiful corduroy collar that'll pop up here. So many different iterations of it. Not only that, but boat shoes. So I covered this in an earlier video of how boat shoes just make no sense to me. I think they're ugly. They're kind of like they kind of remind me of like a New England dad kind of vibe. But when Miu Miu featured them on the runway last spring, it's not so much about having a functional shoe looking like a New England dad as much as it is signaling that you have a yacht, right? So you have that yacht lifestyle, and what does one need on a boat? You need the boat shoes. So it's all of these quiet little hints in the marketplace that we've been seeing that have really taken hold and become a big part of fashion this season. And what I like about it is not the fact that, you're signaling that you're a wealthy person. I think it's a whole other video and conversation. But the good news is that a lot of the fashion that is embedded in these pieces is very functional and comfortable and therefore wearable. And so you get the ROI whenever you purchase something, because that is really what I try to focus a lot on this channel, is buying ROI pieces that you're going to wear time and time again, and it's not just a one-off because it's something that the algorithm fed you and you're shopping for your fantasy self. Another whole trend is tennis core. It goes in line with signaling that you have a club to go to play tennis too, and you have the polos and the tennis gear and the little tennis skirts. That has all been very, very popular, and it just makes so much sense when you look at the whole picture. There's also a continual persistence in obsession with JFK, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. It was interesting that this year they decided to do an auction for items. You can kind of see some of my leopard coats peeking out here. I love that leopard coat that she wears. That was up for auction. I think the starting bid was like $20,000 or something like that. So if you have an extra $20,000, maybe take a look at it. I would love that coat. It's so beautiful. Some of the brands that have really risen up this year and will continue into next year are Loro Piana, which I think is hilarious because you see all these Gen Z people talking about this brand that they would never know of if it wasn't for social media and this trend. And also Ralph Lauren, which is just heavy into Americana, but also marrying kind of like that, having a ranch in Wyoming with having a beautiful estate in England, and just a lot of heritage equestrian style all of those elements that are making up this old money / quiet signaling aesthetic that is going to continue big into next year. Second aesthetic that died in 2024 was minimalist dressing. In 2025, it will all be about opulence and the resurgence of modern bourgeoisie, all about that maximalism and nod to the roaring 20s that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. So when you think about everything that we've been through as the world, pandemic, political unrest, lots of things that are happening in the news. You look at all the things that have happened over the last 4 to 5 years, started to really see a resurgence in dopamine dressing. So bright colors, big shoulder pads, big statement jewelry, those items that give you that hit of maximalism and more is more. So what's going to be coming down in 2025? Lots of ruffles, lots of 60s and 80s coded silhouettes like shoulder pads and bright colors and rich fabrics and textures just feel richer and decadent as well. So some of the designers that have already started doing this a lot is Yves Saint Laurent as well as Valentino, which are two brands that had a big heyday in the 80s. They're also loved by celebrities and always kind of kept true to themselves. But this year on the runways, we saw a lot of really bold silhouettes, colors, and different accessories that kind of let us know that this was coming. Third trend that finished dying in 2024 was the clean girl aesthetic. And so if you recall in 2023, there was a big movement towards clean living, nighttime and morning routines, and getting to Pilates, being a Pilates princess and taking care of your skin, just a lot of self-care and feeling, the kind of that clean lifestyle. We started to kind of see this dilute when Mob Wife entered the picture last winter, and then it followed up from having a very heavy Mob Wife winter spring into Brat summer. So Brat summer was very much inspired on Charli XCX's album of literally just called Brat. Charli XCX has been a huge icon of this movement of what I'll call hot mess girl. So instead of having clean girl aesthetic, we're having hot mess girl, which really is more of like a disheveled, kind of like smudged eye makeup, kind of giving that vibe of like you just got home from the club and being out all night at like a rave and having fun. Again, it goes hand in hand with that opulence and modern bourgeoisie aesthetic, which is all about overdoing it, excess, decadence. And what that means stylistically is that instead of having very clean makeup and very polished look, you're going into more red nails, red lips, the smoky eyes, heavy animal prints, lace, and it's really all born out of rebellion. And again, that whole movement of the roaring 20s. It's like they're all a little bit different. They're kind of different flavors, but they are all in the same menu, if you will. Number 4 is very similar to number 3, which is Vanilla Girl. So we're talking about, again, just a very clean, like cropped jacket, very lady who lunches type of lady to more of a boho chic. Boho chic 2025 will be defined by boho chic. Chloe is the brand that has put boho chic back on the map, back. Really what helped this kind of take off was so many celebrities embracing it and wearing it. It's like the right time right now to incorporate these soft silhouettes, suede, chiffon, flowy dresses, dramatic blouses, lots of romance and clogs. And it's still very comfortable and fluid, but there is a sense of just free-spiritedness. It's amazing to me that one brand, being Chloe, could have such an incredible impact on literally like what I feel is going to define next year. In Q3 alone, boho chic searches were up 83%, which is insane. Much like the hot mess girl of like the Brat summer and the modern bourgeoisie, this aesthetic is also very much born out of kind of a rebellion of the current political and worldwide climate. Number 5, and I've talked about this before, is luxury. And luxury has just kind of been a mess, right? With fakes and, with all the luxury brands kind of getting in trouble as a whole. And there's been many creators and different fashion editors that have asked the question, is luxury dead? And while it will never truly die, what we're really seeing now and into 2025 is this whole idea of little luxury. So not buying like the big heavy investment item, but buying an entry level accessory, beauty, perfume, something that, or even like a bag charm that is accessible It is still ridiculously expensive, but it is more accessible. So you can buy an Hermes lipstick for $50, $60 versus, you know, you can buy an Hermes bag for $40,000. So it's kind of that whole trade-off of people still wanting that luxury, but being more mindful with their money and not buying tens of thousands of dollar item and buying more of like the entryway. We're all still wanting to have that piece of like that fantasy, but we're doing it in a more mindful way. There's an actual economic term for this. It's called the lipstick effect. Anytime there is economic uncertainty, while we may be more mindful of not making that huge investment purchases, spending in these frivolous little luxuries goes up because they're attainable and they're accessible. So that's a lot of what we saw in 2020 was the beauty market skyrocketed, even though many of us didn't have any reason to put makeup or lipstick on or go out at all. Spending was down, beauty was up. An easy way to still treat yourself and not breaking the bank. Number 6, what we've seen dying is looking like everybody else. There's been a rise in hyper individualism with so many brands giving us options to customize and personalize different fashion items. So more and more we're seeing that brands are giving customers the option to make their piece that everybody else has uniquely special and individualized to them. So whether that's adding charms, having the ability to monogram, adding a special shoelace color combination, as we saw designers focus less on kind of like feeding us a specific trend and showing more kind of like individual ways of styling something and making it your own. So I think this is wonderful for personal style because sometimes we can get very caught up in kind of replicating something just to look on trend. So knowing what works for your body type proportionally, for your lifestyle and your budget is just the best way to come up with your own personal style and having that encouraged, not only just in the very kind of superficial way of like a term, but by Loewe or Coach or LL Bean. More than that, having it be so that you can decide for yourself, like, does this work for me or not? And number 7 is related. In 2024, the fashion trend that will have died is what is called Tok-Dressing. That is very much this whole thing that I hear many of you have a problem with, which is like, I can't keep up, you know, so-and-so just said that this was really in style and now it's not, and now I'm hearing that this isn't. And it's just this overall madness of you just kind of spiraling. Nothing really is making sense. And it's all because it's algorithm driven. Things change so quickly. And one of the things that we haven't really talked about, but that is very much a driver of all of these aesthetics is Gen Z and Gen A even. So we're seeing all this personalization and the charms and all the things that are happening are something that Gen Z and Gen A are very much into. Those kids don't want to have what everybody else has. They want to have what everybody else has, but they want to have it in their own way. They want to make it their own. It's ironic too, because even like the trends like the old money aesthetic and the quiet signaling, ironically, it's something that today's really young people are very much into. A lot of these influences are coming from the bottom up. But having this algorithm dressing where the cycles are so much shorter and it feels like everyone is spiraling, and it had to happen at some point where there's an overall slowdown of micro trends and this endless cycle of it's here today, it's gone tomorrow, and focusing more on individualism, self-expression, and what works for you. Along with that, there's other smaller, I wouldn't call them micro trends, but smaller trends that have also died in 2024. So make sure to check out that video. And if you learned something today, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I hope to see you really soon.